Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey.
This is the scariest horror podcast on this side of the Black Lagoon. Screams from the Basement discusses the best double features the genre has to offer.
We also interview the industry's finest that make our screams become nightmares. I am one of your creepy co-hosts. I am Casey.
And I'm Sam the Damned, and let's get screaming.
Let's get screaming on this special Valentine's Day episode. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. This is dropping on Valentine's Day 2025.
We hope you're listening to this instead of spending time with the loved one in your life.
Or Sam, we're not exclusive to that. You don't have to just be listening by yourself. Listen to this with your loved one.
Yeah, I suppose. It could be a couple's activity.
If you're a freak no, we don't want to make this a couple's activity. That's going to cost them.
Yeah.
They're going to have to pay if they want to make this a couple's activity. No, this is a special Valentine's Day themed episode. We are dropping this on Valentine's Day. So why not throw in a little love story on this episode? A love story or two in today's double feature. Sam, what is the Valentine's Day double feature we are discussing on this episode?
This is kind of a you pick one, I pick one. And we are doing Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak from 2015 and Anna Biller's The Love Witch from 2016. Both very lovely romantic movies while also having a lot of stabby and shovel.
Yeah, when you so you pitched this double feature to me. I mean, it was an I've seen one, you've seen one, but one of us hasn't seen the other person's.
Yeah.
But when you threw these two together, I was like, okay, I get that they're both love story, kind of Valentine's-y romantic horror movies. And there's really not a whole lot of romantic horror movies. It's probably a subgenre we need more of.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
I mean,
Heart Eyes is coming out. We obviously get that. There's romance and love stories in horror movies, but I don't think the two cross paths very often.
Yeah, and when we did Slash Lot, we covered My Bloody Valentine and its remake, and I'm pretty sure we even covered Valentine.
Yeah, we did.
And I love all of those movies, but
none of them are romantic. They're
I would argue the original My Bloody Valentine is, but yeah. That movie stops cold for a romantic scene on the beach, Casey.
They're not even on the beach. They're like on a hill
on a lake
in Canada.
Yeah.
I don't even think they're on a lake. Are they on a lake?
Yeah, there's water in the background.
Is there water in the background?
There's water in the background.
Well, it's
nice.
Canada.
It's probably a quarry, actually.
Yeah.
Knowing that town.
Yeah. But either way, when you first pitched these two together, I was like, okay, there's some sort of theme. And then watching both back to back, it's like, okay, there is, because both do also have, besides the romance part of it, the horror part of it, they both have a throwback theme to them.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Love Witch feels like this Technicolor throwback 60s, early 70s movie.
It very much feels like a Hammer horror.
Yeah, a bit like a Hammer horror, and Crimson Peak is a Hammer horror movie.
Yeah, both of them have a little bit of that Hammer vibe.
Hammer vibe.
They take different approaches to the Hammer horror aspects of them, but yeah.
So there's definitely a Hammer horror vibe to both of these movies. I mean, we'll talk about it here with Crimson Peak in just a moment, but one of the characters is named Cushing, as their last name. Yeah. A direct reference to Peter Cushing of the great Hammer horror movies. So yeah, there's definitely that cross connection. I think these work together perfectly as a double feature to watch back to back.
Oh yeah.
So Sam, we're just going to go in chronological order here. We're going to go from 2015 to 2016. These both came out relatively about 10 years ago. I, for some reason, thought The Love Witch was earlier than this. I thought The Love Witch was 2009, 2010, 11, right in that era. but
Yeah,
I was not expecting it to be this new of a release.
I think because it slipped under the radar, like it kind of feels like it could have been released at any time in the 2010s, you
Yeah.
know? Like but yeah, 2016. I was surprised to see that it was released after Crimson Peak. For whatever reason, I actually thought Crimson Peak was newer than The Love Witch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Crimson Peak, let's start off with that one, released in 2015, written and directed by the great Guillermo del Toro. This is, I believe, the second Del Toro film that we are covering on this. No, third. It'd be the third because we did a Del Toro double feature
We did because we
with
did Blade 2
Blade
and
2
Hellboy
and
2.
Hellboy 2. This is our third Del Toro. Won't be the last, probably not even the last one this year that we'll talk about.
Probably not.
Also co-written by Matthew Robbins. So the plot of Crimson Peak is an aspiring horror author, Edith Cushing, finds love in a young entrepreneur, Thomas Sharp. The two soon marry as Edith joins Thomas and his sister Lucille at Crimson Peak, a place that she has been warned about since childhood.
By her dead mom.
Dun, dun, dun. So Crimson Peak, Sam, this was a first time watch for you. So we'll jump into your initial thoughts on Del Toro's Crimson Peak.
Yeah, I liked this one quite a bit. Especially in the first two acts. We'll get into the third act. I do have a few I don't know if I'd even say issues as much as it kind of lost a little something for me in that final act. But like yeah, I really liked this. One thing that I've just come to expect from Del Toro is that he's always going to have practical sets, some amazing practical effects, and there's going to be some CG in there, but it's more supplementing what is actually on camera. And I always appreciate that. Um, Crimson Peak was a very gorgeous movie to both to watch and to listen to. Like the sound design and the score of this movie is great. Um, and I think our three leads are pretty goddamn great in their roles. None more so than Jessica Chastain, though. She kind of runs away with this whole movie. But I feel like she does in just about everything she's in. So, yeah, Crimson Peak. I really liked it. Casey, what's your history with this movie?
So I saw this one in theaters when it was originally released 10 years ago now, which is crazy that this was in theaters 10 years ago. So I was thinking about it because I had recently watched Crimson Peak within like the last year before we did this podcast. And I was thinking back how many times I've seen it and what Del Toro movies I've seen the most. Blade 2 for sure is my most watched Del Toro. This might be my number 2 most watched Del Toro.
Okay.
I don't think it's like in my ranking of his filmography. I don't think it'd probably be my number. Probably, maybe it would sneak into the top 5. I don't know, but it wouldn't be top 2. But I've seen this movie, a handful of times now, maybe close to half a dozen times now.
Okay.
And I have a fun history with the Blu-ray I picked up of this movie. Was when Mr. Movies was closing in Brandon, South Dakota. And I made a trip out there like the last week or something that it was open. Is it the last video store I was in? It could be that it was the last video store that I've been in.
Damn.
And yeah, that was, 8 years ago for sure. And Crimson Peak was on the shelf. And I was like, I have to buy something. I'm in a video store that's closing next week. Like, and that was the one thing I bought was a copy of Crimson Peak on Blu-ray from Mr. Movies. Still has like the Mr. Movies thing around the center of it.
Nice.
The disc.
Very nice.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot. I would dare say maybe I love this movie.
Okay.
Be on theme.
Okay.
Be on theme to say I love this movie.
Yeah.
And I think the set design is insane in this movie. The characters are really well fleshed out characters. I think there's just this gothic this gothic atmosphere that only Del Toro can capture.
Yeah, I agree.
nowadays. Like he is just the one guy that can capture that and capture the romanticism of gothic stories. I mean, this movie lays out right away what Crimson Peak is when Edith is writing about her ghost story and some guy tells her, well, you need to have a love story in here
Yeah.
and just insert it into this ghost story. That's literally what this movie is. It's a Del Toro ghost story with a love story intertwined in the ghost story.
Yep.
But
And,
cast of this movie, we got to talk about the cast first and foremost. Because you mentioned Jessica Chastain, she plays Lucille, which is the sister of Thomas Sharp. Thomas Sharp, played by Tom Hiddleston. Mia Wasikowska, I believe is that how you pronounce her name?
yeah, Wasikowska, I think so.
Wasikowska plays Edith Cushing, and then Charlie Hunnam plays the damsel in distress, Dr. McMichael.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh what a Jack Burton character if there ever was one.
So, doing some research and trivia on this movie, that's actually how Del Toro got Charlie Hunnam to sign up to be on this movie. Was, hey, in the third act, you're playing the damsel in distress.
That's awesome.
He's like, okay, I'm in. Original cast for this movie is interesting because apparently there was some behind the scenes drama before we even jump into this movie.
Okay.
Benedict Cumberbatch was originally cast as Thomas Sharp.
He'd be good, but I don't know if he's
not Tom Hiddleston good.
Yeah.
And apparently there was a falling out, at least like creatively, between him and Del Toro.
Okay.
And Tom Hiddleston was then up for the role like a week later or something like that, and he called Benedict and was like, "Is this okay?" Benedict's like, "Yeah, whatever, okay." And that's how we end up with Tom Hiddleston. Emma Stone was also originally talked about playing the main role of Edith. I think Mia Wasikowska is the right choice here, but I think Emma Stone probably could.
Yeah, I mean,
knocked it out of the park. I mean, she's incredible in everything.
It's Emma Stone, so like I could see her nailing this, but in a very different way than Wasikowska does. It's so funny. Like I
she'd
feel
be
like
a little more that Emma Stone. Like, I'm trying to think of what the best way to describe Emma Stone. A little bit of like smartass.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of
I feel like Emma Stone would probably play this with a little more
sassiness.
Yeah, like agency even. Like not that Edith doesn't have any agency in this, but like I mean, spoilers for like most of this movie, she is being poisoned and is not really able to fend for herself very much. And I just
classic gothic main character energy.
And I just don't see. I see Emma Stone bringing a little more fire to that than Wasikowska does.
Yeah.
That said, like at this point, I feel like Mia Wasikowska was in like everything. Like she was all over the place, and I feel like we don't see her as much anymore, and that's kind of a damn shame because. I mean, say what you will about the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland. It's not a great movie, but she's pretty damn good in it. Like, I don't know.
I wanted to bring that up because again, like around this time, she was in that. I would throw her in that Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart category of someone who was in this big franchise movie with her. You know, obviously it was the Alice in Wonderland movies, which did not have. I mean, they had fans, obviously, but critics didn't like them. There was some backlash from people who just didn't like them. It had a weird. It fell in that same category as the Twilight movies for sure.
Yeah, and she kind of took that credit and did a lot of weird movies like this, like Stoker, which is a harrowing movie. If anybody hasn't seen that, I'd highly recommend Stoker.
And again, that's the same thing Kristen Stewart did and Robert Pattinson. They went and like, okay, we made these big studio movies. Like, let's go make some weird stuff now, stuff we want to make.
Yeah.
And I think she went that route. But yeah, we haven't seen her in a while. At least in the limelight, at least.
Yeah. And I'd like to
I'd like to see her more. I think she's this is for sure my favorite movie of hers. I think she has incredible chemistry with Tom Hiddleston. Like I think he's incredible in this movie as well. Like this movie is his character is straight up Loki, but as the love interest instead of the
Oh, I
conniving brother.
disagree with that. I
Really?
don't I don't so the log line on like Voodoo, like I've owned this movie for a while digitally, and I think it was because I had the Blu-ray and I had a digital code for it and all this. The log line on Voodoo says like a charming and seductive or a mysterious and seductive stranger. And I'm like, in the first scene he's in, Jim Beaver is like legitimately just belittling him. And he's this awkward, he's kind of a mess. Like he's not very, I don't find him like seductive or all that mysterious, even. I find Chastain fills that more so than Tom Hiddleston. And that's not to say like there's not romantic chemistry between him and Wasikowska. I just think that he is playing his performance has so many layers, and when you get into like why he kind of feels a little like reserved and to me like not like the seductive I'm gonna whisk you away to my castle type of stranger. When you get into the why in the third act, that's also where I start to have a little bit of problems, but like it makes everything that he's done in the first two acts hit so much harder, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, here's why I think he works so well and why I compare it to Loki. He is very meek, but still has that charming charisma
Yeah, I
over
mean,
top of that meekness.
yeah, it's Tom Hiddleston, so he's gonna have a little bit of that charm and charisma because,
He's a
yeah,
charming and charismatic guy.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
he
But
he
like,
rides that fine line where I think Loki might be my favorite MCU character. So I'm
okay, yeah,
already attached to Tom Hiddleston in that way, but I think he brings that same sort of energy here where he can play multi levels of he's not just I'm bad guy or I'm romantic lead. He has layers and levels and
yeah,
can he treats different people different. Like he doesn't act the same towards everyone. Like Jim Beaver, who plays Edith's dad, belittles him,
yeah. Oh, just like
rips him
rips him
apart
a new
right
one.
away.
Yeah, yeah,
But you see how he interacts from that versus how he interacts with his sister, where he
yep,
does try to stand up to her,
yep.
and then how he interacts with Edith, where he does get to bring out the charming side, the charismatic side with her at least.
hmm I just I find him so much more like suave and sexy in something like weirdly enough like Kong Skull Island, where like he doesn't even have a romantic story in that, but like just his whole vibe is like I don't know. When I read the log line of Crimson Peak before I hit play, that was more what I was expecting was something akin to like that, and I don't feel like that's what this performance is. And I don't say that as a bad thing. Like I say that as a good thing. It was one of the things that surprised me and kind of subverted my expectations, and I like that a lot. I just think whoever wrote the log line didn't actually watch the movie.
Yeah, I don't agree with that log line. I don't think it's a very good log line.
No, it's pretty bad.
So the movie starts off with Edith as a child, and she sees a ghost right away. We find out it's her mother,
Her mom, played by Doug Jones.
played by Doug Jones, who plays he plays another one of the ghosts later on too. He has two roles as
Yeah,
ghost.
he's the other mother too,
He's the other
right? The
mother.
one
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the axe in
yeah,
the head.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who delivers the chilling line, "Beware of Crimson Peak," which
Mm-hmm.
she continuously hears in her visions of these ghosts. Another great line that she has right away, flash forwarding to now as an adult, she's obviously played by Mia Wasikowska, and she's this American who is this like aspiring ghost writer. She wants to tell ghost stories and scary stories. And she has this great line of, "I prefer to be Mary Shelley. She died a widow." When speaking about like how she needs to find a man and
Yep.
she needs
Yep.
to write romantic stories. Like,
Yeah.
no, this character is very much based in Mary Shelley.
Yep. 100%. Um, And like, yeah, it's got a little bit of Shelley. It's got a little bit of Poe in it. Um, I'm a little disappointed that we don't see the house sink into the earth at the end because I felt like that's where it was going, was follow the House of Usher. But, yeah, yeah. The gothic overtones are there. The Mary Shelley influences are pretty clear. It's actually kind of it's a little meta. It's a little meta,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it 100% is. Again, it lays out the entire movie pretty much right away. Where,
Mm-hmm.
is it like the publisher that she's talking to about her story? And basically, she says her ghost story is a metaphor, and then he says it needs to have a love story.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that's the movie. That's Crimson Peak.
Yep.
And Thomas, on the other hand, where you have, and again, it's comparing the two, where you have her, where she is a great writer that we find out, and you have Tom Hiddleston on the other hand, who's a failed inventor who has been to multiple different countries trying to raise funds for his invention. And
Yeah, his
multiple inventions that we see throughout the movie, but basically his main one is like this like
clay mining thing.
clay mining excavator.
Yep.
And yeah, we see it constantly fail throughout the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
And spoilers for Crimson Peak, because I just want to jump into it right here. We find out he's been traveling to all these different places, ends up marrying women at each one of these places to get their money.
Yep.
And that's what he does here. Marries Edith because her father is
Wealthy.
a very influential and wealthy person.
Yep. Yep. The introduction to Jessica Chastain's oh god, what's her character name again?
Lucille.
Lucille, that's right. I don't know, from the very get-go, she is so enigmatic and mysterious and just
Yeah.
I love that scene at the party with her at the piano. There's just like there's something about Chastain's performance that's so reserved in the first half of this movie, and just she's very cold and standoffish to the point where like I feel like I kind of knew a little bit about this movie going into it before. Like if I had gone into this blind, I might think the power dynamic was the other way around, with like Tom Hiddleston's kind of the manipulator and she's just the one behind the scenes. I think I kind of knew that like she had more of the antagonizing role in this. But I found it really, I find this movie really interesting in the way it plays with gender roles. And I don't know if it all completely works, but I do like how the women in this movie are the ones driving the plot forward and the men are kind of inconsequential in a sense. Yeah.
I mean, the dad dies right away. Charlie Hunnam is just
he's there to be there. He's kind of funny actually in this.
Yeah.
Like
he's trying to figure out the mystery of like who actually this Thomas and Lucille people are.
Yeah, yeah.
Versus, yeah, like you said, we have Edith and Lucille, who are the two driving forces. Lucille is the one that's been poisoning Edith. Edith is the one that's roaming around the house, hearing about Crimson Peak, uncovering the mystery herself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those two. She doesn't learn anything from Thomas. Like
no.
It's through stuff she does with Lucille.
Yep.
Let's talk about that brutal bathroom kill.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Jim Beaver's face gets jacked up.
Yep. He just gets slammed into the sink a bunch of times, like to the point where the sink breaks. It's pretty gnarly. Like the sink starts flooding over, and it just like you see his blood swirling down the drain and amidst the water. Compared to the kill at the end of this movie, it's so much better. Like there's a kill at the end of this movie that's a little underwhelming to me, and we'll get to it. But yeah, I like this scene is so gorgeously shot. Like you see the stranger, the murderer lurking around in the background beforehand. Like it's just it's classic horror done really well. It feels almost giallo like in a
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I really
Giallo,
love this
early
scene.
slasher, obvious. And again, playing with gender roles, it's always a young teenage girl that dies in the bathroom.
Yeah, yeah,
Here it's an old man that dies in a bathroom.
yeah.
Yeah. Playing with that. And yeah, I know Jim Beaver was at SuperCon a couple years ago. This is the movie I wanted to talk to him about. Just
Yeah.
never did, because apparently Supernatural is very popular.
Yes, it is.
Um Apparently the waltz scene where Thomas teaches Edith how to do the waltz
Mhm.
was actually performed by those two. And the thing is, the candle flame can't blow out if you're doing it correctly. Apparently
Mhm.
that's how they actually shot it and actually performed the waltz. Was
It wasn't like a trick candle.
No, that's what Tom Hiddleston said in the trivia that I saw.
Damn, that's cool as hell. I thought for sure it was a trick candle because I'm like, there's no way that candle's staying lit that entire time.
Apparently he did. He said they did it.
That's
I
pretty
believe I
rad.
believe Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, I'll believe him too. Just this once though.
Just this once. I mean, how can you not believe him when he's wearing those cool, like, rounded sunglasses, like those early turn of the century sunglasses? They were super cool.
Yeah.
So they find their way to Allerdale Hall, which is known as Crimson Peak in England. So
Yep.
Edith marries Thomas. They all move back to Crimson Peak. And basically, like, let's set up this house a little bit, because, like, the house is like this giant mansion, and it's
Yep.
just there's nothing within miles besides this red clay that's just surrounding the entire house, and that's what they're
Yep.
mining. And in this house you have an elevator that can bring you all the way up and down the stairs. Below the first level of the house is the basement, and that's just like the mining pits, and they have like these round containers of all the clay that they've mined and other stuff. And Edith is told not to go down there for reasons that we will find out later. But the coolest thing about this house is, like, right when you walk in the entryway, there's like a hole
Yeah.
to the outside, and it doesn't, like, I can't remember. They don't ever bring that up, do they?
No, it's just the part of the roof is missing.
Is
So
missing. So it's constantly like either
it's
leaves are
snowing.
falling or snow is falling.
Yeah.
And it's just it looks tremendous. It looks gorgeous. Same thing
And
with the basement. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the basement either. Is that they have these like skylights almost, and
yeah.
snow is falling through them, but that's the basement. That should be under the house.
Well, and also like in the entryway, the basement's below the first floor, but like every time they step on the floorboards in the entryway on the first floor, like red clay starts coming up.
Yeah.
So it's like there's like things that don't work on a physical level in this house, which kind of just adds to the mystique of it. It's a little bit like how the floor plans of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining just don't add up at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has. Yeah. And again, this house, they built this entire house in this soundstage, which I always find insane that they build an entire house, especially how
Yeah.
big this house is.
Yeah,
And
because
then
it is. It's
they
huge.
just tear it down afterwards.
Yeah, that's nuts.
That's insane. I think it's worth it. This movie's incredible. It looks incredible. The house itself is a character in the movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One of my favorite images of this is the reason they call it Crimson Peak is that when it snows there, you'll step on the snow and the clay will start coming up into the snow and like leave red
Yeah.
footprints. And I just love the visual of that, like the red and the white together. We see a bunch of that in that third act.
Yep. Yep.
Such a great visual palette, and it's like this. It's like the red, kind of like the red behind us.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's a very deep red.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crimson. It's literal crimson.
yeah. One of my favorite tropes in horror movies is in this. Probably one of the reasons why I love it.
Yeah.
A woman just wandering down a hallway with a lit candlestick.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Just if a
Oh,
movie has it, if a movie has someone roaming around like an old house, an old church, an old ruins, something like that by candlelight, I'm I'm halfway there already. Like the movie's got me. It's hooked. I'm hooked.
yeah. The scare sequences in this section of the movie really get me. Um, it was kind of funny. I watched this one with Maria. She'd never seen it either, and like these really affected me. Like I was making noises and I was like kind of like curling up on the couch, like oh my god. And she was like, It's just weird what kinds of things get to you in horror movies because I'm pretty like I'm not a scaredy cat like I used to be. I'm pretty tough to scare, but like some of these sequences in particular, like the ghost that comes out of the floor at one point,
Mm-hmm.
really kind of fucked me up.
Oh, and then the one that like comes through the doorway, like it's just like
Yeah,
torso up, comes through the doorway.
yeah,
You later have Thomas and Lucille's mom in the
in the
bathtub with
tub,
like a
giant axe coming out
giant
of the head.
axe in her head.
Yeah. Oh, there's some really disturbing, gruesome imagery in this one.
Yeah. We get some Loki butt in this.
Yes.
That's no notes like that.
Low key butt.
Loki butt. Yeah. I think what's great about this, and we touched on it a little bit, is this entire time we keep cutting back to Dr. McMichael, Charlie Hunnam, and
Mhm.
he's slowly discovering all this stuff. Kind of
Yeah.
about the same time as Edith is.
Yeah.
And he is basically discovering that Edith's dad wrote this check to Thomas to basically tell his daughter to F off and move back to England,
Yep.
which he does,
But
which
then
again
yeah.
doesn't, he dies.
Yep.
And I just think in that scene in particular where she's going to stop Thomas from leaving and he's not in the room, but she comes back out of the room and he's there.
Yep.
Like that's where the romance stuff comes into play here. I think Tom is in that scene. I think that's where the charm really comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
And then I think the charm also comes out when when we see Loki butt. I think we get to see some of the charm come out there. And then at the end of the movie where you see his true intentions.
Hmm.
Not that he's just an evil person manipulated by his sister, but he has levels to that.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
when
It's a layered performance. It's one where like he is allowed to be charming at certain points. The scene where they stay at like the tavern in the
yeah,
like where they're away from Lucille, away from the house, like that feels like to me the most romantic scene of the movie because he feels like he doesn't have any pretenses about
doesn't have
like
his sister cock blocking him in the attic. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
We find out that throughout all these years that he's been married multiple times and these
Hmm.
wives end up in the clay pits underneath the house. And you get to see
Yeah.
like one of them rising up,
Yep.
just like a skull and part of the torso coming out of the clay pit. Grossest part, though, is you find out Thomas and Lucille are brother and sister
Yeah.
who are banging.
Yeah. There's definitely some abuse going on in there. That's kind of where I get that it's like the third act reveal. I wish we would have had more development to that side of things. More of like I don't know, it feels at that point, like Lucille's motivations and everything are not quite as fleshed out as I would like them to be. It's very much just a like all of a sudden she turns jealous because her brother actually loves this woman. And I'm kind of like, but where did this start? Like, why is this like what? Like you can't just drop this on us and not give us more context, more like thematic
Well,
resonance a little,
I think
like
there's enough context. I mean, she is the one that kills Edith's dad.
yeah, yeah.
And obviously she's the one that has murdered all of his ex-wives, their mother. It's not the first time she murdered someone. And
Yeah.
she does this all for him, either to financially get something for him, to be the only woman in his life, to continue to manipulate him for all of those personal gains. I think it's
Yeah.
all there.
It's all there. Maybe I wanted Lucille to be more of a I feel like she's a side character for the first half of this movie. And I really wish that she would have
Well, I think
been
that's
more
on. I mean, again, I think
it
that's on
is. It's on
purpose, though.
purpose,
She's
but
mysterious. She's kind of just always lurking in the background.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's something just a little that I wish was just a little more fleshed out with her. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I would have loved to see more. Honestly, I usually hate when movies do this, but I would have liked to actually see flashbacks. I would have actually liked to see like Lucille develop into the psychopath that she is, or had something that was like, I don't know. There's no reason for her killing her mother. There's no reason. It just she's crazy. And I'm like, but there should be more.
Yeah, there needs to be an inciting incident for her
Yeah, yeah.
as this killer of, or why she's obsessed with her brother.
Yeah, exactly. It
Yeah,
just
yeah,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's fair. I think that's the context is there. We just need something more.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll agree with that. Dr. McMichael shows up at the house at this time and does nothing. He
No.
literally tells Edith what she has already figured out.
And then he's like, "We're leaving."
We're
and
leaving.
gets stabbed.
And he gets stabbed. Again, there's a great line. You're a doctor, show me where, which Thomas says to Dr. McMichael, because he's like, one, we know he's never killed someone or stabbed someone for that matter. And you definitely feel like he's starting to regret. Thomas is starting to regret all the things that he's done.
Yep. Yep.
And looked at Edith as this fresh start, someone who he actually loves. And has to just do this because otherwise, he says it, otherwise my sister will.
Yep. Yep.
So he stabs him, and we get like this big chase throughout the entire house with Lucille and Edith.
And her billowy robe and cloak, and oh god, she's classic crazy gothic mansion lady. Like
running around with knives, like blindly stabbing into the elevator.
Yep.
Yeah, gone full crazy.
The chase sequence is great. They end up out by the machine that Tom Hiddleston can never get to work.
What's which death is the one that you find a little bit lame-o? Is it Thomas or is it Lucille's?
It's Lucille's. Like she just gets bonked in the head with a shovel. And that's it. I was like, no, she has to come back.
In the head twice.
Yeah, she gets bonked in the head twice, but neither one feels super climactic. Like I should
have taken her head off.
Yeah, something like I don't know. Like from Del Toro, I was just expecting something more grandiose than just bonk. Oh, she's gone. You know.
I do like her line where she first bonks her on the head, and she's like, "You're gonna have to kill me. I already heard you the first time." And
I do like the line. The line is great.
That's not before Thomas dies, and Thomas becomes like a force ghost at the end of this with like,
yeah,
it looks super cool. Like he has a the where he got stabbed in the face. He has this
Yep.
giant cut on his face, and the blood's like coming out of it, and it's just this
Yeah.
crimson red coming out of his face,
And it's
almost
floating.
like a
Yeah.
tear coming
Yeah.
out of his face.
See, I love Thomas's death because that is gnarly and gruesome, and I was not expecting it quite then. So that was a moment that kind of made me go, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, yeah, and it feels like to wrap up the love story part of this, it feels like he's finally free from his sister.
hmm
We don't get a happy ending necessarily,
Oh no, I think this is a very dark and dour ending.
but we also get the ending Edith predicted earlier.
Yep.
She wants
Yep.
to end up a widow like Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
And she did.
She is.
She uses this story as her ghost story and love story in her writings. And yeah, again, comes full circle, a bit meta in a way.
Yep.
But yeah, that's Crimson Peak.
I do want to jump back really quick to just like my favorite moment of Tom Hiddleston's performance. My favorite moment is the reveal where like Edith finds out that Lucille is, you know, essentially has been sexually abusing him his whole life. Like the look on his face when she walks in and sees it, it's not like it is shame, but it's more of like just I don't know, it's heartbreaking. Like the expression that Tom Hiddleston has is just one that's so dialed in and so specifically like
I was gonna say it's a bit of shame, it's a bit of reaching out for help.
yeah. Yeah, like it's almost that's exactly what it is. It's almost more of a cry for help than like I don't know. I just that moment kind of floored me, and that is my favorite moment from Tom Hiddleston in this whole damn movie. I think he's so good in that
Yeah.
specific moment. He's so dialed in, and it's amazing.
One piece of trivia that I have before we wrap things up on Crimson Peak, Jessica Chastain actually learned how to play piano.
Oh hell yeah, that's awesome.
Which is ironic because she also learned how to play bass for Mama, which was produced by Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
Del Toro
I love that movie.
Making Jessica Chastain learn how to play every instrument, I guess.
Yeah. She needs to learn how to play the hurdy-gurdy for their next collaboration.
Or what's the Jack Black saxophone? She needs to learn how to play that.
Sax man.
Yeah. It's like plastic one. What's that called? There's a name for it.
I don't know. I can't think of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Someone in the comments, let us know what the hell Jack Black saxophone is, and let us know how Jessica Chastain is going to use that in a Guillermo del Toro movie.
Yeah.
But Sam, what are your final thoughts on Crimson Peak, and what is your rating out of 3 Crimson Skeletons?
Out of 5 Crimson Skeletons?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, oh no, did we change our rating system? I don't know.
5 Crimson Skeletons.
Okay. I really liked this. I think some of the third act, I like the third act. I just think it needed a little something. It needed a little subtext underneath it, a little more of it. That said, this movie is gorgeous. This house, the sets, at like the 3 performances from I'll say 4 because Charlie Hunnam really is. He comes alive in Del Toro movies. I love when Del Toro and Hunnam pair up. Like,
he's a good damsel in distress in this movie.
He is
kind of like the bumbling want to be hero.
Yeah, yeah.
He has what's his name in Frozen?
Oh yeah, Kristoff.
He has Kristoff vibes. 100%.
He does. He totally has Kristoff vibes. Yeah, I really liked this. It's not my favorite Del Toro, but I think I'll like it. I think I could like it more on rewatches. I gave this about a 3.5. 3.5 Crimson Skeletons out of 5.
Yeah, I'm not far behind. I'm at or ahead, whichever way you look at it. I'm at 4 Crimson Skeletons out of 5. I really like this movie again. Everything you said. I love the set design of the movie. I do think it has a great love story underneath all of it. I love Doug Jones as all these different ghosts, and I love the practical mixed with CGI that they do for the ghost, because again, you have to for a ghost, like to create that kind of mist and the multi-textures to the ghost, where you can definitely tell it's Doug Jones in makeup, and then they put a layer of CGI to make it ghostly.
Yeah.
I think this is, it's one of my favorite Del Toros. It's one, like I said, I've watched so many times. I think it gets better and better on each rewatch, and watching it again this time, I want more Mia Wasikowska. I think she's great in this movie, and I think we need her in more movies. I would love to see her and Del Toro work together at some point.
Again. Oh, for sure. Have you seen Stoker?
I've
from
not.
Park Chan-wook? Oh, dude. We should cover that one sometime on the podcast. It is fucked up. It'd actually make a good double feature with Crimson Peak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to our second movie and our Valentine's Day double feature, let's take our first ad read here and talk to our friends at Fangoria. For over 40 years, Fangoria has been the leading source for all things horror. The famed magazine is back with a vengeance every quarter with new in-depth discussions on the best contemporary horror, sci-fi, and macabre. You can use our affiliate link to save 20% on your annual subscription to the magazine, back issues, and the latest Fango merch. Visit shop.fangoria.com/screams from the basement and use promo code Screams from the Basement at checkout to save 20%. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, scan that QR code on your screen and save yourself 20%. Thank you so much to the great people at Fangoria. All right. Well, Sam, you ready to move on to the second film in our Valentine's Day double feature?
I am. I know we've talked a little bit about this one through texts. Casey, The Love Witch was a first-time watch for you. What are your initial thoughts on The Love Witch?
Well, my initial thoughts on The Love Witch, I liked this. I wanted to love this.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing the love out there. I liked it. I wanted to love it. I think our main lead is incredible. I think the Technicolored shot on 35 millimeter film is the best part of this movie, and I think that's what makes it stand out. I think without that, the movie really doesn't exist.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
I think that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this movie, along with our lead performance. Not to take anything away from her, but with these same elements but shot digitally, I don't think it has this cult following that it has developed in the last 10 years.
Yeah. I also think any movie that shoots on 35 millimeter and doesn't open with a pretentious title card that says this was shot entirely on 35 millimeter film, looking at you, strange darling. I just appreciate that. I appreciate that it didn't feel the need to point it out. It just shot it on 35 millimeter and looked great, and that was enough.
Also, we can tell.
Yeah, like you can tell. Jesus. Yeah.
Sam, what about you? You've seen this a couple times, right?
Yes. This was the second time I've seen it. I watched this for the first time.
Was it on Joe Bob?
No, I actually watched it outside of Joe Bob, but I know Joe Bob has played this. Yeah. Actually, I might have watched the Joe Bob presentation at one point. I don't think I logged it on Letterboxd.
Where you did?
Yeah, I probably did. I've only logged it on Letterboxd once, but now that you mention it, I think I have watched this a few times. It was like a few years ago when I first watched it. I was a little late to the party on it, but I'd heard good things, and it was just one that had been on my radar since it came out. And I really kind of loved the vibe of it. On my initial watch, like my very first watch, I was like, this feels a little long. And we'll get into it, but I did not actually feel that this time. This time around, I was just very hooked into it. I don't know. I was just very much on its wavelength. And I get that it's a movie that's not going to be for everyone because it's a very weird movie. It's very strange. But I don't know. I like the way it talks about gender roles and gender relation to sex, and like I think Samantha Robinson's a fucking revelation in it. Um, I also think that this movie is like I'm a Lana Del Rey fan, and this is very much like if
I
Lana
saw a
Del
lot
Rey
of
made a
like almost every other letterbox review mentioned her.
and it's true, it's so true because it feels like a Lana Del Rey music video come to life a little bit, and I don't know, the vibe of this one just really gets me. I love this movie. I will say that. Um, I will say that I love The Love Witch, and this last watch just kind of cemented that for me. Um, so yeah, yeah, The Love Witch.
Well, let's jump into it. The Love Witch 2016, written directed by Anna Biller. The plot of The Love Witch is Elaine, the Love Witch, is just looking for that perfect man in this 1960s inspired Technicolor romantic horror film. Elaine finds out that love stinks. I had to throw a wedding singer reference in this episode somewhere. She finds out that love stinks when each man she seduces fails to live up to her witchy aspirations. So the film
Yeah,
stars Samantha Robinson as Elaine Parks, who is the Love Witch, who she's part of this witch cult.
yeah, like a coven.
Yeah, this coven that's basically they all worship women's bodies. It's led by this really creepy dude.
Yeah, who who's very much about like women using what they have to get what they want.
Yeah.
Um, it is interesting that the figurehead of this coven is a male, but it's all about female empowerment. And I think that's very much by design. Like
Yeah.
I think everything this movie is very meticulously crafted. Like it reportedly took Anna Biller like a long time to make this because she was so detail oriented and focused on like every little thing.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, she hasn't done much, if anything, since this.
No, she wrote like a book since, but I don't know if she's done another film
Yeah.
since. Yeah.
I love the opening of this movie. I think the first third for sure is my favorite part of this movie, where we
Yeah,
get introduced
I
to
would agree with that.
Samantha. You get her doing the voiceover of like wanting to become a witch, why she's a witch, her powers as a witch, basically. And again, what she wants out of life. She wants to meet a man. And it's all like while she's driving her car with this
Smoking
very clear
cigarettes.
smoking a cigarette, like wearing this bright, vibrant outfit. It's a convertible car, so like her hair is blowing, and like it's this green screen behind her, very clearly a green screen, much like a 50s 60s movie. You can tell it's a
Yep.
green screen. Yeah, it just has such a great vibe to this opening
Yeah. Yeah.
that
It
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 does. It sucks you in. It's a seductive movie that gets you hooked right away.
yeah, it sets the tone pretty easily, and the one thing that caught me off guard a little bit on this watch was that this movie is a lot funnier than I remembered it being. Like there were multiple sequences, especially when we get into like her encounters with the men
Hmm.
that really made me laugh like a lot. um but this opening is, it's telling you exactly what movie you're in for. It's showing you that we're using filmmaking techniques from the 60s. We're using film that was made like we're using film like what we did in the 60s. The color palette is very 60s.
Hmm.
But what's funny
Outfits
is
are very 60s.
yeah, but what's funny is I don't know if this is actually set in the
It's not.
60s.
They have cell
It's
phones.
like they have cell phones. They have like it's a modern day. It's a little bit like It Follows, where it's kind of like timeless while being reminiscent of a specific time period, you know?
For me, it has a like Edward Scissorhands vibe,
Okay, I could see that.
where
Yeah.
like Edward Scissorhands is very like 50s America,
Yeah, it's like 50s
but in the
Americana,
90s.
but in the 90s. Yeah, I get that. I get
Hmm.
that.
Like everything in this is very 60s, but it's 2016.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, when we get first introduced to her. She's buying this new house. She's moving to this new town, buying this new house. And we get introduced to, is it her neighbor? That's like the, or she's just the real estate person.
I think it's her neighbor. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's owned by her mentor Barbara, the house that she's renting, but it is an like Trish is the interior decorator of the place, I
of the
guess.
house.
Yeah, of the house.
Yeah.
So,
And the house is, I mean, very vibrant, covered in witch
yeah.
iconography throughout the entire house. A lot of pinks and reds.
And it's kind of funny that she has like that conversation with her about like this is just what Barbara likes. I'm sorry that it looks this way. And Elaine's just like, no, I love it. This is perfect.
It's perfect.
And Trish just kind of seems a little like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the two go to lunch together right afterwards. And again, I love the set design and costume design of this scene because everything is pink.
Yeah. It's so it's
Everything.
it's very 60s, very kitsch and very feminine,
Yeah.
this tea shop that they're in. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a scene from like Breakfast at Tiffany's or
Yeah.
like a yeah. Like
Yeah.
a classic like Audrey Hepburn movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Elaine is, I mean, that's again one of the best parts of this is her costume design.
Yeah.
Incredible in this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Every look that she has is just fantastic. And this is where you kind of get even more of her backstory of like she had a husband, he died. It's very much implied that she poisoned him, but the cops couldn't find anything on her. That's why she's moving to this different
Yeah.
town. Trish talks about her husband, and they kind of have this like this discussion about how to keep men happy and what to do, and like, and it just it's really funny because I feel like both of these are valid feminist talking points. Like both of them have a certain perspective that could be viewed as feminist, but like they're in stark contradiction with each other. Where Elaine's like, you have to give the man whatever he wants in order to keep him like around, to keep him satisfied. And Trish is very much like, no, like that's not what we as women are here for. And like, I just, I don't know. I just find some of the discussions that they have in this movie just fascinating. I don't know.
I think they're good discussions. I don't think there's a lot of meat on the bone with the discussions, or they're really not. They're not explored, or at least like the themes aren't fully fleshed out for me.
That's fair because it is mostly dialogue driven, like the exploration of the themes. Um even Elaine's like
Because like I don't feel
internal
like
monologue is like very
I
yeah.
don't think Elaine learns anything in this movie.
No.
Like she's the same character, like at the beginning of this movie, and then by the end of the movie, she's unchanged.
She's come full circle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and all of the every time she meets a man, she does what her ideology is of keeping a
Yeah.
man around.
Yeah. And when it doesn't work, she just
Kills
him and moves on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of love that though.
But I mean, I think each act is kind of split into three different guys that she meets in this movie. Again, the first third is my favorite. He's my favorite
The college
guy,
professor.
where he's like this, very early 70s college professor, has this beard, like looks like he's hitting on a student outside like the college.
Yeah. And
And
Elaine just looks at him and he stops mid conversation,
yeah,
just walks towards her. Yeah.
walks towards her and tells her like, I have this remote cabin out in the woods where I go to write and think because I'm a college professor.
Yeah.
And she's like, let's go.
Yeah.
And like she drugs him on like as soon as they get to the house.
Yep.
With like a psychedelic drug.
Yep. And then they have sex, and he just becomes
Trips.
overwhelmed with his love for her. And he's a weeping mess. And like this guy is hilarious to me. Like everything in this sequence is so goddamn funny.
Yeah, he's great. He's my favorite guy that we get introduced to.
Yeah. Yeah. The second one, it goes a little darker. It's less centered on the humor and more like, oh God. And then the third one is
The
it's funny.
detective.
Yeah,
So boring.
the detective is boring, but I genuinely think that's the point. Like, because all of these
Yeah,
men
but
are
your
kind
movie
of
shouldn't be
boring.
boring. Your movie shouldn't be boring.
I don't think it is though. Like, oh God, I love when we get into the detective thing and like their internal monologues are going and they're both like just opposed opposites, and you think this is not going to work, and it obviously doesn't. But I think the humor in the third act is derived from like Elena's trying to do what she always does, and this guy is not having any of it. Like he's a little under her spell because like he's, covering for her, he saves her from, I mean, literally being gang graped at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I think the humor is derived from like her frustration of like, oh, this isn't working. Like, why is he not head over heels for me? You know? I don't know.
He's just such a boring character.
That's fair.
They're
It's fair.
all the guys are pretty non-characters. I think the first guy at least has fun with the
Yeah.
like basics that he's given.
Mhm.
I like the like psychedelic love scene that they have
Yeah.
where he like starts like tripping balls.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's
Yeah,
just such a pretentious like he's very much the like typical pretentious college
yeah.
professor, and just God, he deteriorates so quickly. And I love when she's
The next
talking.
morning, like right
Oh
away.
yeah, like he's a weeping mess. He looks like hell. I love when she's talking about him later, and she's just, he was just like a woman. Like,
So he dies. Wayne
yeah,
is his name. What a great college
Wayne.
professor
Yeah,
name, Wayne. He dies. She then goes and makes this concoction
yeah,
to place over his grave when she
yep.
buries him in the backyard. It is made of. Sam, I'll let you say what the
It's
witchy
made of
concoction is made of.
urine and a used tampon.
Yes.
Very witchy stuff. Very. Ari Aster watched this before Midsommar. Actually, I do feel like that's a legit pagan thing. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Has to be. Yeah, has to
Yep.
be. Sam, you're gonna have to help me with the plotting.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
because like after
so
this point, I'm in. So I'll walk you through my thought process with this. I'm in on this point. I'm like, okay, now she's gonna find another guy to be like her equal or something like that. We don't get that.
no, but what I love is like, so she's talking to Trish. They go back to the tea place. She's talking to Trish. Blah blah blah. She's saying all this stuff like, oh, he was just like a woman. Things just ended poorly or whatever. And then Trish drops the news that she's going out of town. And the minute she says, I'm going out of town, I'm like, your husband's a goner.
and he
And
is.
cut to the next scene, and Elaine is literally like inviting herself over to their place, and she's seducing him. Basically, she says something. She's like talking to him about like, did you ever want to experience anything like a romantic fling, or be dangerous or do something impulsive? And he's expressing this desire, and so she's like, well, let's do it then. And there's just no hesitance from this guy. He's like, oh, okay. And like the college professor, he gets a little clingy. He's a bit of a stage 5 clinger. And Elaine's like, look, this is not gonna work. You're kind of you're being kind of a woman. And she leaves him, which is where it gets kind of dark. The he goes into this funk. Like Trish comes back, and she suspects that he's had an affair. She has
She doesn't
theories.
suspect it's
Yeah,
Elaine.
she doesn't think it's Elaine, but she is suspecting that he had an affair, and he ends up killing himself in the bathtub in a pretty gruesome scene that, like, for a movie as like campy, and I mean, I guess it's a little melodramatic, but like, goddamn, like that suicide scene is pretty rough. I know we don't actually watch the act, but like, whew. Um, and so, Trish is super upset about this, and we have another tea scene where Elaine is just she's almost like very flippant and not like she's like, oh yeah, that's terrible, but
Move on.
like
Yeah.
move on. Um and they're talking about how, and at this point, I believe Elaine has already met the cop, the detective.
The
At the
detective
end.
who's he's on Wayne's case. He's
Yes.
trying to figure out what happened to Wayne
'Cause
and
the
finds the
co-ed
witches.
the co-ed tells on Elaine, essentially. The
Yeah.
co-ed that she snatched Wayne from.
Yeah. And they find the witch's jar.
Yeah, the witch
You soon
bottle.
discover that there's a modern medicine type store that has witches bottles that are similar to Elaine's there.
Yep. So
And he eventually traces it back to her.
Yeah. But even with that evidence, he doesn't. So like he's kind of under her spell.
Okay,
but I think in more of a normal.
This. Is she putting like a witch spell on these men?
I believe so. I believe she's using some kind of magic. I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's necessarily a spell like how it's usually portrayed in movies. I think it's
like, she doesn't say like bibbity bobbity boo, like,
yeah, but I think it's very much like sex magic. I think it's very much like using her femininity to entrance them, essentially. And that's kind of what they talk about at the when they go to the like burlesque club, and the the very male figurehead of the coven is like, you have to use your body to, like, all this kind of stuff.
But they also say they're like sex magic can be dangerous, like.
Yeah, which is why I think like when Elaine is sleeping with these men, she is using sex magic. Like, and I think that's why there's such disastrous results.
Yeah,
because we never actually see her.
I wish the movie was spelled out a little more on what that was.
Okay. I get that.
I'm very confused on what's.
So I think part of it too is like she doesn't, the detective Griff, he does not ever actually sleep with Elaine. Like they never sleep together. And so I think that's part of why he able to resist her. Yeah, like he doesn't, but
he still he still has that obsessive quality. Like he covers for her with the other detective, like blows off this woman who was trying to go on a date with him, like still there. I don't know. I wish it was more spelled out. That's what I'm asking for.
My theory is that he's just a normal dude who's just thinking with his dick. That's my theory, is like, I don't know, I might be able to sleep with this girl if I cover for like, and maybe I think it, I mean, he's kind of a skeezy cop. Like that's what I get from it. Yeah. Sure. So yeah,
I mean, they're all skeezy guys in their own way. Like he's no different than the the skeezy husband or the skeezy college professor. That's another thing. The three guys should have been more different from just
being skeezy guys.
Skeezy guys, yeah.
But I mean, a lot of guys are just kind of skeezy guys.
Yeah, but this is a movie. You gotta create some characters in this movie. Okay, I want to be positive for a second, because there's a great line that is in, I don't remember who she says it to, but it's from Elaine, and she says, "I'm the love witch. I'm your ultimate fantasy."
I believe that is to the husband,
Yeah.
Richard. Yeah, Richard.
Maybe
yeah.
he's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, that's
I
what it
think
is.
so.
It's like when they're having sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can just tell like that would be like the final line of the trailer or something like that.
I think it might be the
It
final
might be?
line of the
Okay, yeah.
trailer, actually. Yeah.
It's a great line. It's a great line. Like
Yeah.
if I heard that line, it'd suck me in on what this is.
Yep.
So Trish tries on all of Elaine's stuff. She eventually like makes her way into the house. She's looking for her.
She's returning her ring that
Oh
she
yeah,
got.
she's
So like her and Richard go to the Renaissance Fair, which is where Elaine. So I know you said this scene felt pointless, but this to
that's
me
where the
is
movie
where
lost me completely. When we get to that Renaissance Fair, and I'm like, I checked
oh God,
out of the movie.
I
Out. I'll be
loved
honest.
this scene. I
checked out.
loved this scene. And here's why. This is the moment that Elaine falls in love with Richard. But like when they're at the table, their internal monologues are going.
Sorry. But why do they fall in love? Why?
They don't fall in love. She falls in love with him.
I understand that. But is she not in love with these other guys?
No, I don't think so.
It didn't feel any different to me as an audience member.
Oh, it felt okay. You gotta rewatch this some point. Because like to me, this is where she falls in love with him because he's not like the other ones. He's not falling in love with her. He's not just going head over heels. Sure, he followed her to a Renaissance fair and he's covering for her for murder, but he's not like worshiping at her feet. And I think it's that whole like you want what you can't have. Like she knows that he is opposed to marriage, that he doesn't want to fall in love, that he is not falling in love with her, that it's clearly just a lust thing. And that makes her want him. But like they're like they do this fake like kind of wedding ceremony.
Yeah.
And like that's where she kind of falls in love with him. And they're at the banquet and their internal monologues are going, and she's just basically like, I've never met anyone like Griff before. And he's just like, I know what'll happen. She's mysterious now, but all of that will turn to resentment and all that, you know, like, and he's just so cynical and just so closed off from the experience. And I think that's what leads to Elaine going nuts at the end and killing him. Because, okay, so now we can get to the Trish finding, she's talking to Trish. She's saying like, oh, I love him. Like this is the one. I want to marry him. And Elaine is like, and Trish is just, this is where she's kind of being like, just Elaine is being dismissive of Trish's like grief.
Yeah,
because
her husband just dying.
Because her husband just died. And,
like, why aren't you happy for me?
Yeah, exactly. And I just think the scene is so funny. And she like lets Trish try on her ring. And then she leaves abruptly, but Trish still has her ring. So she goes over to Elaine's place to return the ring. And she decides to try on like Elaine's wig and like all of her like lingerie.
Yeah, and her makeup.
And do all of her makeup and stuff. And she ends up finding a shrine to all of Elaine's dead lovers. And her husband's one of the pictures. And Elaine's even got like, she's got like little trophies from each of them, and Elaine comes back in and girl fight. Super campy, super melodramatic.
Slaps.
Yeah, slaps. Like Elaine picks up a knife when she walks into the room, but then doesn't use it. I'm like, girl, you could have avoided all of this. Yeah. And basically like Trish is like, I'm gonna tell on you. And she leaves. So then Elaine and Griff are at the bar, and Elaine's talking about just because she's a witch doesn't mean that she's actually murdered anybody. You know, Richard killed himself. What's his face died. Wayne died of a heart attack after they made love. And her ex-husband was experimenting with drugs and overdosed, which I don't buy at all. But the townspeople like hear that and they start saying burn the witch, but instead of like they're not gonna burn her,
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they literally like
they start unbuckling their pants and
yeah.
like pinning her down, and Griff like fights them off and they have to get out of the bar. And I don't know, that scene to me is like the most horror scene in the whole thing, because I'm like, Jesus, like it's just, I don't know.
It's a mob full of rapists.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's fucked up. It's really fucked up.
Yeah,
So
kind of comes out of nowhere, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, well, I feel like most of the times it does come out of nowhere, like, ugh. So yeah, they make it back to Elaine's place. Elaine tries to drug Griff with a cup of wine or whatever, and Griff sees through it and he throws the cup down. He's like, I'm not drinking any of this shit. And Elaine's just finally had enough of not being able to have him, and she stabs him in the chest. Just
And
fucking kills him.
recreates this painting that's been on her wall the whole movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then in her mind, they ride off together on a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
And roll credits. Like I said, weird fucking movie. Totally get that if it's not someone's cup of tea. Especially this time around, I fucking loved this one. I thought it was like, it's so campy, it's so melodramatic. The acting is on Letterboxd reviews. I noticed what you said about the Lana Del Rey stuff, and I noticed a lot of people calling out the acting. I'm not gonna defend it as like, oh, it's high art performances or anything. But what I will say is I believe it is a stylistic choice that factors very much into the 60s hammer horror, the campiness of it, the melodrama of it. And so while I get where like a lot of the supporting performances could rub people the wrong way or put them off, to me it's just very much part of this movie's charm, and I loved it this time around. I really did. So, Casey, final thoughts on The Love Witch?
Yeah, this wasn't for me. I didn't like this movie. I mean, what I said in the beginning is what I liked about it. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredible looking film. I think the set design is gorgeous. I think the costume design is great. I think the shooting on 35 millimeter, the actual like palette of the entire movie is incredible. I think Samantha Robinson is great as Elaine Parks. She really is just super mesmerizing on the screen. Everything else around it is pretty rough. It's a pretty rough movie for me. Narratively, there's just not anything there really to latch on to narratively for me. There's no other characters besides her, and most of her characterization is just the performance for me, where I don't think there's, like I said, there's no growth for Elaine. There's no growth in her character at all, and I wish there was something there, something for us to latch on to. Yeah, I think the acting thing is a deliberate choice. It's just I think the characters are underwritten. There's no meat on the bone, nothing to latch on to with any of the other characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. Maybe I'll like it a little more on a rewatch, but just everything about it kind of felt undercooked besides the style of the movie.
Okay. So this one, I don't know. Wait, how many jars of urine and tampons are you giving this one?
I gave it 2.5 on Letterboxd.
Okay.
That might have been a little generous.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
God. Okay. Well,
it's probably closer to like a 2.
Oof.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Like it just is.
Well, for me, this is a solid 4 this time around. I really love the style of this movie. I love just the vibes of it. I think this is a fucking hilarious movie. I think like you said, Samantha Robinson's fucking amazing in this thing. And I don't know. I appreciate a movie that just so boldly talks about the things this movie talks about and depicts the things this movie depicts. I love that it's kind of a reclamation of the way women are portrayed in those like 60s Hammer horror films, and kind of a like not just a critique on that, but a like full-bodied like, no, this can be, like I said, it's a reclamation of it. It's a reclamation of that like female sexualization that was happening in those 60s horror movies. And I kind of love that. Um I love a movie that ends with a couple riding off into the sunset on a unicorn from a Renaissance fair. I love a movie that ends with an
Not many
like
other movies end with a couple riding off into the sunset on a
exactly.
unicorn at a Renaissance fair.
I love movies about an unrepentant bitch who's just like, no, I'm gonna kill these fuckers, and she doesn't learn a damn lesson and she doesn't have to. I love that it's just full circle. Like, no, I'm gonna kill this guy, and she's probably gonna move to another town and start all over. And I love that for her. Like, Elaine fucking rules, and I would watch a Love Witch sequel.
I would too. I would too, because I feel like narratively, I think they might be able to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I really love this. It's a solid 4 urine and tampon jars out of 5 for me. So yeah, The Love Witch. I'm just glad I finally got you to watch it, even if it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally watched it. It had been on my my watch list for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Sam, that has been our Valentine's Day double feature with Crimson Peak and The Love Witch. Fun double
Yeah.
feature. Yeah, I think those two pair well together. But let's move on to the rest of the podcast that we have planned for today. But before we do that, Sam, you got our second ad read of the episode.
Yeah, I do. Are you looking for that extra buzz while watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? How about melting your mind while watching a romantic horror movie where people ride unicorns? Turp Boys Delta 8, 9, and THCA gummies, vapes, chocolates, and more has you covered. This plant-based product is made from the purest organic hemp-based extracts and backed by third-party laboratories. You can visit buyturpboys.com/screams for the not screams for the basement. Buyturpboys.com/screams from the basement pod, or just scan the QR code if you're watching down at the bottom of the screen, and use promo code Screams from the Basement Pod at checkout to save 10% on your order. Thanks for supporting the show, Turp Boys.
Well, thank you, Turp Boys. Sam, what do we got next?
Well, Casey, we've got just one more segment. What have you been doing lately?
What have I been doing lately? I have a lot of things I might be doing. I just noticed.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up my notes. I'm gonna run through some of these pretty quickly here, because I do have like 10 movies on here. So the first one I watched that I'll talk about here, Evil Dead 2. I got this, if people can see it, this new ink on my arm. It's the Kandarian dagger from Evil Dead 2, and I was like, I haven't watched this in a while. I need to rewatch Evil Dead 2 just because I love this movie, and it's been, I think, probably since I watched it at the State Theater a couple years ago.
Yeah, that might have been the last time I watched it too, to be honest.
It's so good. I laugh at so much of this movie. Bruce Campbell's incredible. Just, it combines everything, like all of my favorite sensibilities into a movie. It's Three Stooges slapstick humor with like gross out gore gags that ends in medieval times. It's incredible. Evil Dead 2 rules. It's one of the greatest horror movies ever made. I finally watched Willy's Wonderland with Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
Have you watched this?
I started it. I didn't finish it.
Okay, you don't need to. It's pretty bad.
It didn't grab me.
It's pretty bad. It's got a cool concept, like it's Five Nights at Freddy's, or what what's the other Banana Splits movie? It's in
Oh
that
yeah,
same
yeah,
vein of like animatronics come to life and kill people with Nicolas Cage. That should be a home run, right?
yeah. But he doesn't talk for any of it. It's
He doesn't
weird.
talk the entire movie.
Yeah,
It is completely misguided, and then it has like a bunch of like teenagers that break in there too, and they kind of become the main characters.
yeah,
And it's just not good. It's not a very good movie.
yeah. It.
Stylistically, not very fun. Cage is fine, not given a whole lot to do though. Like you have Nicolas Cage. Like what? I don't know. Wasn't very good. Wasn't very good. Jumping to, I'm gonna save some of our crossovers for you.
Most of
You
mine
see,
are crossovers.
yeah. I watched a brand new movie in the theater, Presence. Went out to the theater for that one. Steven Soderbergh's movie. Uh, this one is interesting. So I didn't really know much going in about
Hmm.
Presence, and like it's shot entirely from like this first person point of view of a ghost haunting this house,
Nice.
and it's how it's shot is so just like mesmerizing because you're like through the lens of this ghost and you're like the camera itself is almost like floating through the house and peeking in on conversations between this family that has just moved in, and it's basically like this family drama, this teenage drama, all through the lens of this ghost story. And
Nice.
there's a great reveal at the end. It has kind of all these like hallmarks of a great ghost story. It feels a bit like The Sixth Sense meets like an Ari Aster movie
Okay.
in a way, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
It has all those hallmarks. It like if people told me this was an M. Night Shyamalan movie, I would believe them.
So Soderbergh is like kind of low key one of my favorite filmmakers. I don't talk about him too much, mostly because he doesn't do a lot of horror. But this to me sounds right up my alley, and I really can't wait to see this one.
Yeah, I think you'll dig this one a lot. And it's under 90 minutes, which more movies need to be under 90
Soderbergh is great
minutes.
at that. He does not do bloated, lengthy bullshit. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I watched this. I believe it's an Indonesian movie. Yeah, I watched this on Netflix. It's Do You See What I See on Netflix, and basically it's after this girl's parents die. She's like trying to fit in with her friends and trying to like fit in with her friend group, find her place in the world type of thing. And she just really wants a boyfriend. And so she finally makes a wish to have a boyfriend, but it turns out the boyfriend's a ghost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like the ghost begins to like haunt her, like change the way she is, haunt the house that these girls are in. And yeah, it has this. So if you like Indonesian horror movies, it has kind of those classic hallmarks of those Indonesian ghost story movies. It's a ton of fun. I liked it. It's fun. It's not like my favorite one. It's not one that would like make my top 10 list or something like that, but it's a fun
Right.
watch. Watched Grafted on Shutter, which just came out I believe this year, right?
Yeah, that's brand new on Shutter
Yeah.
anyways. Yeah.
So this one's about this uh young Chinese student who has like this birthmark on her face, and her father had a similar birthmark, and he was basically trying to discover like what's a skin grafting thing that can change this almost overnight, like change it almost instantly. And so he develops like this, it's like this green serum that looks like something out of like Herbert West would be using. And it has those classic hallmarks of the like Science Gone Wrong movies. It's a ton of fun. I think tonally it might be a little bit all over the place, but I think that also works to its own charm to this movie. I describe it as Mean Girls meets Face Off meets like a Cronenberg or Reanimator type movie. So if you're into
Okay.
those things all combined together, Sam,
Yeah.
you're gonna love this movie.
I'm excited to check this one out.
Watched a movie that I had heard a lot about for a while. It's called Landlocked, which is also on Shudder, and I had thought this was like a found footage movie. It's not. It uses found footage, so it's basically like this guy returns back to his family home after his dad passes away, and he finds his dad's old camcorder, and the camcorder allows him to see into the past. So he starts like documenting all of his childhood growing up, and the movie uses like real life footage from from the director's childhood to tell this story. It's like it's almost like it's almost like Skinamarink in a way.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
but like it definitely falls in that like lo-fi analog horror. I
Okay.
don't think it's very scary or does anything too groundbreaking. I wish it was a found footage movie. I think it might work a little better if our main character had his own camera that he was filming with and then picked up his dad's camcorder and could see into the past via that camcorder. Like the differences between the two. I don't know. It's okay. It's not great. Um what else did I watch scrolling through here? I think the rest are all crossovers if I'm not
I
mistaken.
believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so then I'll go to my last thing that I have on my list. I've been reading the Toxic Avenger comic books, so I've been in a Toxic Avenger mood. Written by Matt Bowers with art from Fred Harper. This comic book series is so much fun. Like the artwork,
Nice.
as you
Yeah,
can
that
see,
artwork rules.
is so much fun. It's a new take on Toxie. It's basically like it's set in modern day, and it's like, what if we took the original Toxic Avenger movie, but combined it with Toxic Crusaders and brought like the Toxic Crusaders into real life? Because like Dr.
Nice.
Killumoff is in this, but he's not called Dr. Killumoff. He's just Dr. K.
Okay.
Bonehead is in this. There's some more of the
Oh yeah, that
artwork.
artwork rules.
Melvin is not like this nerdy janitor at Tromaville Health Club. He's like a more of a punk who's like trying to find his place in the world. Like he's a 90-pound punk in this instead of a 90-pound nerd, which I think is a fun change up. I've read the first 4 issues. There's one more issue to come out. I'm having a blast with this. So any other Toxic Avenger fans out there, you're going to dig this a lot. It's a ton of fun. Like I said, combines Avenger and Crusaders into like one story.
Nice.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing besides the stuff that you and I have watched together and stuff for the podcast. So Sam, what about you? What
Yeah.
have you been doing?
So I'll start with the stuff that isn't crossover. I recently watched The Fly on VHS while I was doing some work in the office, and by the end of The Fly, I was not doing work in the office because I was
You were
completely pulled
watching The
into
Fly.
this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's so good. I know it's a weird thing for a movie that ends on such a like depressing, harrowing note, but it is such a comfort movie watch for me. Like I love this movie and I pop it on anytime. Uh, the practical effects are so gross. I'd never watched this one on VHS before, and like having that VHS quality just adds a little something. Like 80s horror just hits a little different on VHS, and I don't know. I love that format, and The Fly is a perfect VHS movie. It really is. I love the high def modern, remaster of it too, but shit, there's something great about that like grainy, like you're kind of leaning into the TV to see just how gross it is. Like, yeah, fantastic. And I also read a book by a previous guest of The Bad Signal, our sister show, At Dark I Become Loathsome by Eric LaRocca. Yeah. Not for the faint of heart. this book, I mean, if you've read any LaRocca, you should know that. I definitely recommend this book if you can stomach it. There is some truly, truly heinous shit in this one. The ending is a real, like, not just like rip your heart out, but it kind of stomps on it too. Like, it's just like, it's LaRocca is one of the best authors out there as far as bleak endings go. And this is, to me, this is one of his, if not the bleakest ending he's ever written. It's pretty harrowing. It's
I
just
mean, from that
honest.
title alone, you can tell there's going to be some dark.
Yeah, it's gnarly. It's equal parts tough to put down and tough to keep reading. Like it was one of those where like there were a few chapters where I ended it and I just put the book down for a few days and I'm like, I just have to kind of sit for a little while before I pick this back up. But oh my god, I really loved it. Um I think it's another I just think it's another home run from him. He's doing some really cool stuff. And At Dark I Become Loathsome is like
awesome.
another jewel in his crown. So
yeah, he's awesome. And one of our favorite interviews that we've done on the Bad Signal.
Yeah,
Such a great guest.
Yeah, so cool, so nice, so like so bubbly for the stuff that he writes.
Yeah.
Like holy shit, amazing. So yeah. Um Let's start with Looky Lou. Should we start with Looky Lou as far as our crossovers?
I know which one you want to end on. So yeah, we'll hold off on that. But yeah, we watched a brand new film that is out today. If you're listening to this on Valentine's Day, it is Looky Lou, which is a found footage horror flick from director Jason Zink and writer Nolan Myhale, and we had the two on the podcast for an interview. Awesome guys, incredible interview.
Great
Such
guys.
a fun chat. Sam, what did you think of Looky Lou?
So I was nervous to meet these guys because this is a very effective movie.
Yeah.
It is what you and I, for me anyways, it is what you and I call a shower movie. I don't know if you would agree with that.
100%.
Like it feels like something you shouldn't be watching.
You shouldn't be watching this movie.
It's not like super graphic or exploitative, but it still manages to feel like you're watching a snuff film. And it's some of the stock sequences are just crazy. Like it's basically told from the perspective of a burgeoning serial killer who starts off just kind of following people with his video camera, and eventually he starts escalating to breaking into houses, going through stuff, and then that escalates to violent acts. And you just kind of watch the progression of what this guy is doing. Super unsettling movie, super effective in what it's trying to do. And I was relieved to find out that those guys didn't actually kill anybody, even though they could have fooled me.
Yeah, they didn't just send over a snuff film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, do an interview on our snuff film.
Because the fucking screener was just like a YouTube link too, like a private
it was just
YouTube
a YouTube link. The director plays Jason plays the
killer.
The killer.
Yeah. So yeah, super great guys. Like that interview was so much fun. So definitely check out the interview. There's no spoilers in it. We keep it pretty vague.
Yeah. And buy the either the Blu-ray or the VHS from Scream Team Releasing. We checked out that entire site after the interview, and they have this like awesome bundle that they have for Looky Lou. And I mean, there's so much stuff on that Scream Team Releasing might be like that underrated gem of boutique labels of just releasing these kind of underseen horror movies in these like crazy bundles.
Yeah. Super cool stuff.
Yeah. We rewatched The Substance at the Vermilion Coyote Twin Theater. Yeah. This movie fucks.
Yeah, it was in both of our top fours, I believe. I think it might have been number 4 for me, and it was pretty high up on yours, right? 2.
Number
Yeah,
2
yeah.
in mine. Yeah.
In hindsight, I probably had this way too low in my top 10 list because this movie, second time around, it didn't lose an ounce of potency. I was still like, holy shit,
The
this
movie
is.
flies by.
It
It's
really does.
insane.
I loved it so much that I ended up writing like 1,200 words on how, even though it was nominated for 5 Oscars, the Academy still snubbed it. So if you want to read that, it's up on our Patreon right now. Yeah, The Substance. It fucking rules. It
Yeah.
fucking rules. And then the
I'm
last
hoping,
thing.
because is this our last episode before the Oscars? It might be.
I think
No, we have one more. We have
one
more,
more.
but
One
I'm going to
more.
say it now. Demi better win.
I think she's a shoo-in. I genuinely
I
do.
think so too.
I don't think anybody else has got that this year. I think it's Demi's award.
Yeah.
And that makes me so happy.
Yeah. Makes me happy because then I can tell the Charles Band story of
Yes.
cursing her ass on the I Spit on Your Grave poster.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Last movie though, Sam.
Yeah, last movie. So our last episode was a David Lynch episode. We watched Eraserhead and Blue Velvet, and we said in that episode we both bought tickets to a special one night only screening of Lynch's Mulholland Drive at the Sioux Falls State Theater.
Sold out.
Sold out. It was in a sold out crowd
on like a Wednesday night.
So anybody who's listened to the Lynch episode will know I liked both of the movies, but it wasn't like oh my god, I'm in love with this. Like I was curious to see more Lynch, but it wasn't like I was like, oh my god, I have to see more Lynch right away. After watching Mulholland Drive, I am very much in a, oh my god, I have to see more Lynch right away. This was my I get it moment for David Lynch. I fucking loved this movie. It's Casey, I know you were a little more lukewarm on this than I was. What did you think of Mulholland Drive?
I like Mulholland Drive a lot, but the third act, when we get into, I'm not going to say much. When we get into the third act of the movie,
there's a rug pull.
There's a rug pull, and I wasn't 100% on board with the rug pull.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the rug pull, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Goddamn, though, David Lynch knows how to set up a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's anyone better at setting up a mystery than him.
Yeah. There's no one better at setting up a mystery and not paying it off than David Lynch.
Or paying it off and he pays he pays it off.
He does. He pays it off. It is technically a payoff. This movie wrinkled my fucking brain, man. Like
yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think I gave it 3.5 stars after watching it right away. That it's not a 3.5 star movie.
Yeah,
it's at least a 4-star movie because I watched like so many analysis and breakdown videos on the drive home, the next morning, the next day, all the way through the day, like just consuming like so much about what people think this movie is and what it's about and what some of the meanings are. And yeah, I love movies that can do that. And yeah, this might be like one of the best to make you question and have different theories on. It's a great movie for that. And yeah, I like this movie a lot, especially thinking on it more. It's kind of like when I watched Eraserhead. I think I said I gave that 3.5 stars, and it probably got bumped up to a 4-star by the end of our conversation. So we probably could have done an episode on Mulholland Drive, and
we probably could have done an episode just on Mulholland Drive. I have so many thoughts. I'm currently working on a piece that's becoming unwieldy, but that will be on Patreon eventually when I finally get it. I don't know. It's probably going to be like 2,000 words.
Yeah.
But I loved this movie. I slapped it with the full 5 stars.
The crazy thing is, this was like written
as a TV pilot.
As a TV pilot, and I'm like, huh? What? What's the TV show here?
Yeah. And I think that's where you get like huge name like character actors that are just in one scene. Like Robert Forrester is in one scene at the very beginning. He literally snags an "and" credit, and then he's never in the movie again.
Yeah.
Like, never. Like, there's one scene in the middle of it that's like that just follows an incompetent hitman on a job. That's maybe one of the funniest things I've seen ever. Like, it's so good.
It's super funny.
Like,
Justin, everything with Justin Theroux is super.
Everything, yeah, he's
super
so
funny.
great.
Like that could have been its own movie.
Surprise Billy Ray Cyrus cameo. Like, what?
Yeah,
I don't.
Pool boy Billy Ray Cyrus.
And Naomi Scott is
Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts. Oh, holy shit! Like,
incredible in this movie.
What a star! Especially after the rug pull, like everything she's doing in the third act, I'm just like, Jesus Christ! Like, the juxtaposition between the two halves of her performance,
and this is like one of her first movies, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like her big break.
It was like, this is 4 years. This is 01.
Yeah, it was 4 years before King Kong.
Before Kong.
Yeah. God, she's fantastic, and Laura Herring is the other side of that coin, just as fantastic in a less flashy performance, but she's just as good. Like, oh my God. Yeah. I loved Mulholland Drive. I think it's...
Well, we might have to let it sit for a bit and come back to Mulholland Drive at some point.
For sure. We'll do that one with, like, I've heard Inland Empire is a really, like, what the fuck is going on movie, and I would love to check that out sometime. So maybe we'll have to double feature them.
Do a Lynch Part 2 down the road.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Cool. Woo. Well, that's the episode then. We did it. We did a podcast. Yay.
We did a podcast.
We did, and it is our Valentine's Day podcast. So we want to wish you all a happy Valentine's Day. Hope you are spending it with your loved ones. Don't listen to our voices. Can wait. You can wait to watch this video, listen to this podcast. You can wait till the 15th. That's fine. Spend it with your loved ones. Maybe watch Crimson Peak. Maybe watch The Love Witch. Maybe watch Looky Loo if you're really dangerous on Valentine's night.
Yeah.
But Sam, where can they find this podcast, and where can they follow us on social media?
Well, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube if you like the video portion, or just kind of anywhere you get your podcasts. I'm sure we pop up in other things, right?
If you're a weirdo that doesn't listen on Apple or Spotify, we're probably on that.
Yeah. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. We do updates with all the episodes. We plug our sister show, The Bad Signal, on there, the official podcast of Bad Hand Books. And we just have a little fun on socials. We like to post goofy selfies of the shit that we're doing together. And yeah, if you want all that good stuff, follow us there.
Yes. You can also check out our exclusive merch on TeePublic. Just follow the link in the episode description here and get some exclusive Screams from the Basement merch, including t-shirts, hoodies, pillowcases. Yeah, all the fun stuff. Yeah, you can even get pillowcases.
Sleep on our faces.
Sleep on our faces. Sleep on our cartoon faces. You can also check us out on Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.com. /Screams from the Basement, capital S, capital B, and Screams from the Basement. We have a $1 tier monthly newsletter, and you get a signed 8x10 artwork print designed by our own Sam Lentz. You also can sign up for the $5 tier if you want a monthly bonus episode, written reviews, which Sam has been talking about, and some collection videos. I need to pump out a collection video this week yet, so I don't know what I'm going to do yet. We'll figure it. Maybe I have something Valentine's Day related. See.
Ooh, yeah.
Our bonus episode, Sam, did we decide on our bonus episode for the month of February?
We did. I'm really excited about it.
I forgot what it is, so you better tell
okay. We are doing, both Casey and I are VHS collectors. We're VHS heads. We love it. We are going to do our top 10 VHSs that we have in our collections. It's going to be a fun episode. We both have very different VHS collections.
We sure do.
So I'm curious.
It'll be a very visual one too. So like this is one you're gonna want to watch.
Yeah, we'll definitely have the video up on Patreon. Sometimes we just post the audio, but for the ones that have a visual component to it, we'll post the video. So you'll get to see a bunch of cool VHS box art. And yeah, I'm really excited to do that. Really excited to see what Casey picks. I already have some ideas for mine, and I've been going through my VHSs anyways, so this is a perfect time for it. I'm excited.
It's going to be a fun one. Last thing we need to plug here before we wrap things up. We're throwing a horror con, so you can buy your tickets for the Screams by Night halfway to Halloween con. Just go to our event page over on Facebook or click the link in the episode description to buy your tickets. Only $10 to get you in with over 24 vendors. We have horror guests coming, horror cosplayers. We have the original Toxic Avenger, Mark Torgel, coming. And we have some more guests that we have not announced yet. We've been working hard behind the scenes to bring this cool event to Sioux Falls.
Can we announce our nonprofit partner, or should we wait for that?
We should wait on that.
Okay, we'll wait.
But we have one. We're
really excited. We have a nonprofit partner that we are partnering with for charity work, and it's pretty exciting.
Stay tuned to our social media pages. We've been announcing stuff. There's so much stuff. I mean, we haven't even probably gone through half of our announcements yet for the event. So a lot more stuff to come on that. It's going to be so much fun. Again, April 26th. Save the date. Buy your tickets. Come on out. It's going to be a grand old time.
Yep.
Sam, I think that's it for the show, if I'm not mistaken.
That's it. So everybody, thanks for tuning in, and sweet screams.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.